What's going on, everyone? We are back for episode 56 of the Sports On broadcast right here, presented by Sporting Edge. I am Tyler Edgerton, and my host this week is Joe Fabiani. Joe, great win last week. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Another week, another win.
Sunday was beautiful. Kicked my feet up and enjoyed. It was beautiful. So this week, we are going to review the Eagles' 34-7 victory to improve to 4-1 on the season. I have 3-1 on the sheet. First mistake of the evening. I'm sure there will be plenty more. We're going to recap Week 5 in the NFL. We're going to go around the league for Week 6 and, of course, get you ready and break down the upcoming game against the Panthers. You guys know how to reach us. You can climb in on Facebook or Periscope by commenting, or you can text the SE Radio hotline at 267-404-MYSE, and we will add some of the comments as we go. So let's jump right into it and kind of review the pretty easy win for the Eagles. They jump out to an early lead. They end up winning 34-7. What's your general thoughts on that game?
Just complete game. Complete, start to finish.
Finally.
Yeah, it was remarkable, actually. We're getting into the meat of the game halfway through the third quarter, and I was just completely blown away in all phases. It was just, it's one of those things where you're like, is this a fluke or are they that good?
Yep. Well, to steal Dennis Green's line, they are who we thought they were. The Cardinals came in. They came in, traveling to the East Coast, where I said last week that they weren't going to be good. They showed that they're old. Carson Palmer can't get out of the pocket. They did shut down Larry Fitzgerald. He had 6 receptions, but only 51 yards. And then you look at how we expressed the fact that the Cardinals' offensive line was banged up, and I thought the Eagles put some pressure on Carson Palmer and got after him. I mean, what else is there to say? And we were talking about how we needed to see a complete game all around. There was always, the Eagles were winning, but Doug Peterson should have done this. He shouldn't have done this. Carson Wentz forced this throw. Perfect win, 34-7. What else can you say?
Carson was flawless. The running game was impressive. Vinny Curry had a great game. He was ranked as one of the top 5 defensive ends by Pro Football Focus this week. That was great to see, seeing him step up.
Mm-hmm.
Timmy Jernigan and Bo Allen put in another nice game. Patrick Robinson, again, having another huge game. I wish he didn't have hands of stone. He should have had at least 3 picks.
He's got the Malcolm Jenkins syndrome from last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, didn't Jenkins drop a pick too? I think he did.
Well, you know what? I think so. But Patrick Robinson, after the game, said that on the sidelines, they were saying, oh, there's one. There's another one. Man, we should have had like 4 picks this game. Yo, Robinson, why don't you grab one? It was just the running joke of the game because, yeah, you would have liked to see them convert on those opportunities to force those turnovers, but, 34-7, when you're up 28-7, it doesn't really matter. That could hurt them this week or, upcoming games in the season, but luckily they were up so much it didn't necessarily matter. But kind of getting back to this game, I think a lot of people are tempering their expectations. We just saw a dominant win by the Philadelphia Eagles. When's the last time we've seen that in Philadelphia? And yet people, and again, it's a short week, but people are already looking forward to Carolina, and they're iffy about it. I don't know. I just feel like I wish it was a longer week so we could enjoy the win a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the consensus surrounding the Thursday night game is just, it's people are not really feeling comfortable right now. Coming off of a huge win, you can't, like you said, you can't enjoy, what they did on Sunday because now you're turning around facing another 4-1 team. So it kind of steals your thunder a bit. And even though they're 4-1, I feel like everyone is still down on the Eagles.
Yeah, it's almost like it didn't happen. It's almost like they won that game 34-31 or something like that as you look forward to the rest of the season. But just kind of getting back to the game, and before we wrap it up with our favorite play of the game, I don't know, just the way Carson Wentz has taken command of this offense is incredible to see. Only 21 games into his career. I thought he took shots when necessary, and they panned out both times. The one time he did miss to Zach Ertz, that was a perfectly placed ball. It's where Zach Ertz could only get it. It's just Antoine Bethea made a great play on the ball and got his feet down in the end zone. But I thought it was a decent throw. I mean, I feel like a lot of safeties in the league can't close that quickly as the Cardinal safety did.
Yeah, it was a hell of a play by Bethea, and at the time I was pissed. I didn't understand as to why they were passing the ball in that situation. You're under 2 minutes, you're getting the ball back at halftime. You're in field goal range. You don't have to force the throw. I like him being aggressive there, but obviously it was a great play made by that safety. But I mean, when you really look at it, he really did put it in only one spot, and Bethea just made a hell of a play.
Yeah, and Ertz had beat his man too.
Right.
Not much else you can say about it, but I did agree with you situationally. Probably better just to run the ball there and kick the field goal, but again, doesn't end up. It doesn't matter because the Eagles were on fire in the first quarter. They had a comfortable lead, and that's probably why they did feel like they should push the ball downfield there. So let's jump into our favorite play of the game. We'll start it off with this.
West right slot, 2 jet, all go on 1-on-1. Right, set, green 80, green set.
That's my quarterback. No, seriously, Carson Wentz is good. So let's get to our favorite play of the game, Joe. I'll let you start it off.
I have 2. Can't just have one. I'm probably stealing one of your favorite plays. But just the fact that I sat here last week and I said that Aguilar and Torrey Smith were going to have huge games, and they both had huge plays. I have to go with those 2. I was so fired up.
That one's for you.
Yeah.
Can you feel the pat on the back?
Yeah, I'll pat myself on the back. But no, I was so fired up, especially with Torrey Smith starting out slow and really struggling. And, like I spoke about last week with him really, taking it in stride and understanding that he was going through something and he was going to rebound, and coming out and having that huge game at home was something that, really helps lift spirits up. That was kind of a question you had with the new receivers. Obviously the chemistry's been on point with Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz, but the receivers has been kind of lacking. And it was great to see Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar really get out there. And, people want to say this was a breakout game for Carson Wentz, but look at the stat line and look what Aguilar did. And how he did it and finished that play was just unbelievable. I could comfortably say that was definitely, coming out game for Nelson Aguilar as well.
I said to a lot of people that this is the type of game to catapult a budding quarterback into a superstar and into the national spotlight. And I think that's what Carson Wentz did last week, and he's got to follow it up this week. But it's funny, like, you just put out 2 great plays that he had, especially when he recognized the defense. It's 3rd down or 2nd and long. I forget the Aguilar situation, but he realizes that there's a safety traveling and there's no one over the top, so he airs it out and lets him go get it. That was great. I feel like because the win for me kind of just all bled together. It was so relaxing, so convincing of a win that I forgot of some of those plays that he made, 4 days removed from the game. But the play to me, or the 2 plays to me that really stuck out, was on the opening drive. They're at 3rd and 11, and they convert with Ertz, and then 3rd and 11, they convert with Alshon Jeffrey. It's huge to get points on that drive because you got the ball at the 40-yard line, 3 times in a row? If you come away with 3 field goals there, or a touchdown and 2 field goals, Arizona probably feels pretty high that they gave the ball to you at the 45-yard line and they've only given up, 2 field goals and a touchdown, or 3 field goals. That could have changed the entire momentum, but good teams put away bad teams, and that's exactly what they did in the first quarter. They get the ball right around midfield 3 straight times. They go down and score a touchdown. I just thought, opening drive, you're backed up 3rd and 11 twice, and you convert. I just thought that was, the best play to me of the game.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? Yeah, what else can you say?
All right, so we're going to wrap up this win and just generally say, enjoy it because it was one of the most convincing wins that the Eagles have had probably since Pittsburgh last year. but it all fell apart after that. We'll see if they can jump into it, and we're going to break down the Panthers game coming up. But right now, we're going to have some quick topics, and let's start off with something away from football. It would be the process getting paid. Joel Embiid signs a 5-year, $148 million deal. Joe, is it too soon?
No, absolutely not. Trust the process.
Great answer. That should just be, we might make that a sound drop. No, it's not for me either. He's the franchise player. He's the best player on your team, even though he's had injuries. And you don't want to, I don't know, we've seen it too many times with superstars, and especially the NBA, where if you don't pay them immediately, they kind of get like a grudge about it. And if you don't pay them at the end of the season, yeah, they might resign. But a lot of players will go away and connect with other players. I thought it was the perfect time to sign him. $148 million. He can add a bonus for the Supermax. But I think the great thing about this deal is that the Sixers, like, not rewarded themselves, but they backed themselves with some language in the contract that if he gets injured, they don't have to pay the full salary cap number.
Right.
I was kind of iffy on it at the beginning just because of, I don't know, paying that out to someone who has been injured for 2 straight years and then injured last year. They've only played 33 games. But Joel Embiid is a transcendent player, and the more I think about it, you don't want to irritate him or him be frustrated as the season goes on because he's not paid. He knows his worth, and he knows what he's worth to this city, especially, and the fans. And I think that's why they decided to pony up and pay him right away.
Yeah, I mean, he's, a once in a generation talent. When you look at him, I mean, we all know about the injuries that have gone on with him, but realistically, I would think that just based on the way they've treated him over the past few seasons, like, they wouldn't have made the investment if they weren't comfortable either. So, and you see all these videos going around too on Twitter and on various other forms of social media of him running throughout Center City at 2 a.m. He's got all these basketball workouts. He's playing tennis. I mean, this guy is Philadelphia. He's all over the city. He has a great relationship with the fans. He's all over Twitter. People love him, all over Philadelphia. And, he's a great presence. He really just seems like he's a down-to-earth, fun-loving guy. And I feel like people are really happy to get behind a kid like that. And, I mean, really, when you look at it, there is nobody else in the NBA that even remotely comes close to Joel Embiid's skill set, especially at his size. I mean, it's not, crazy to say that if he's healthy for the next 8 to 10 years, I mean, he could take over that mantle from LeBron as the best player in the NBA.
Do you think he has the ability to win the MVP in the next decade?
Oh, absolutely.
Barring health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially Defensive Player of the Year is in his grasp. He's got such a big wingspan. It doesn't matter where you are on the floor. You have to watch out for him blocking your shot. From, driving to three-point range, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he can get down the floor in like 4 steps.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. So let's jump back into our biggest surprise and disappointment from Week 5 in the NFL and kind of get this rolling as we head towards Thursday Night Football tomorrow. Joe, I'm going to let you start off. Surprise or disappointment from last week?
Surprise and disappointment. You know what? I'm just going to throw both of them together and just talk about the Packers and the Cowboys game because it was great. The fact that Dak runs in to try to take the lead with a minute and change left, without falling down and trying to be smart about it. And Rodgers just comes down the field and
he's a stud.
Puts another dagger in Dallas's heart. I believe he's 6-0 all time against.
What can
Dallas.
you do?
Sure now. It was awesome to see. 1, because it's Dallas, and 2, because Aaron Rodgers has just been playing out of his mind this season. It's been really exciting to watch the Packers play offense. And it's also great to watch the Cowboys lose.
Yeah, I mean, they were without Jordy Nelson a week, without Randall Cobb a week, without Devontae Adams for half a game. They lose Ty Montgomery, and it doesn't matter. Like, their defense isn't that good, and Aaron Rodgers, we've seen it with Brady a ton of times. Aaron Rodgers is just one of those guys. It doesn't matter where you are on the field. I forget who threw out the stat, so I apologize, but I saw that the Cowboys held the ball for 10 minutes in the fourth quarter and came away with 10 points. the Packers had it for like 4 minutes and came away with 21 or 17 or 20, something like that. It's just incredible how he can get down the field, and he's a true maestro. Like, he can orchestrate any offense no matter who's on the field for him. You saw Martellus Bennett get involved. You saw Aaron Jones come out of nowhere and make an impact. That was definitely a surprise and disappointment. Or, just group it together and talk about the game. That's all you want. But switching over to my surprise, I have two of them. I don't have a disappointment this week other than the way OBJ sounds like a baby and tears apart his team. But we'll save that for later. Surprise, the Jaguars' defense. Incredible. 2 pick sixes, 5 interceptions against Big Ben, the highly touted Pittsburgh Steelers offense. That was pretty incredible to see. And then the second one I have, Deshaun Watson. I mean, we talked about him last week. What else can you say? 5 touchdowns in 2 straight games. He's taken over the city of Houston. Unfortunately, J.J. Watt goes out, but they've got a real chance of making the playoffs once again. And I don't know, I just love the kid. I've loved him since Clemson. He's got a winning mentality. He's a true leader. And he's putting it together on the field. Yeah, they lost against Kansas City, who's, arguably and not very arguably the best team in the league. But he put up, 34 points on them, came back twice. They had a punt return by Tyreek Hill to beat the rookie. I mean, he's incredible. 10 touchdowns in 2 games is nothing to laugh at, especially when you're a rookie. And now you get to go against Cleveland, which, there's nothing better than the payback against a team that didn't draft you. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun to watch him destroy that Cleveland defense.
Yeah. Yep.
But, it's incredible that, how the Jaguars have been playing defense so far this year. I believe they're plus 10 in turnover differential, which is ridiculous considering you're thinking the Jaguars, really? Realistically, I feel like we've talked about the way they've drafted when we talk about drafts, around that time. And they've just gathered so much talent on the defensive side of the ball that, some of those guys had to start playing well. And, they're reaping the rewards this year. I believe their secondary is the best so far this season, ahead of the Broncos, which is remarkable.
Miles Jack, Jalen Ramsey, all those guys. And then you mix in, Paul Plesney. Wow, that was hard to spit out. But, yeah, they have some veterans. They get it done on the offensive side of the ball, but it's the defense really. We've seen this before with specific teams. When your defense can score once a game, it's just that much better for your team. And I texted you yesterday and said, wow, the lineup card for the NFL is awful this week. Go check out some of the matchups. They're terrible. You look at the Eagles and the Panthers, that's the number 1 game on the schedule. And then the number 2 game is like the Rams and the Jaguars because they're both 3-2. And there's nothing better on the schedule other than no, forget it. There's nothing because you got Jets, Patriots, you got Browns, Texans, and the Monday night game is the Colts and Tennessee, and then you got Sunday night is the Broncos and the Giants, who have 1 wide receiver on their roster. I don't know. It's just awful. And then, like I said, second best game other than the Eagles and the Panthers. So it'll be interesting to see how the Rams bounce back. I know we're completely off track, but the Jaguars, they look good for the first time in our lifetime, basically.
Yeah, and when you look around on various forms of social media, you see all these people saying, the Giants should trade Eli to the Jaguars to reunite with Coughlin and get down there. And, they need a quarterback. They can't pass the ball. I believe the Jaguars won a game, and I don't even think Bortles had 100 yards passing. That is ridiculous. But yeah, dude, the Jaguars defense has been unreal, and Leonard Fournette's been, remarkable as a rookie.
Yeah. Scored in every game, I think.
Oh, Britt has he? That's. Yeah,
I believe so. So yeah, they're definitely a surprise. But Joe, now it is time for my favorite time of the week. Let's get some NFL music going, and it's time to predict. So let's jump into our first of Week 6 predictions. I just told you that the lineup card was pretty bad, so bear with us. But there are 2 games that kind of caught my eye. The Detroit Lions go on the road to New Orleans, who's coming off a bye. New Orleans is favored by 5 points in this game. Who do you like, the Lions or the Saints?
You gotta love the Saints coming off the bye. I think that now they've really settled. They've gotten rid of their distraction, I guess you could say, in Adrian Peterson, who they traded to the Arizona Cardinals, and they're really going to unleash Alvin Kamara, I believe, going forward.
My boy, Alvin Kamara. I talked about him 3 months before the draft. I'm just saying. I got to throw that out there.
Yeah.
He's the next Jamal Charles, people. Start paying attention.
Yeah, I was going to say who we both love. But yeah, no, I expect him to really explode. Hey, Eagles should pick up the phone and call about Mark Ingram. I'm just saying. But no, I mean, I really love Kamara down there, and they have Willie Snead coming back from suspension and injury, so that'll be a nice boost to that offense. But I mean, it's kind of really hard to pick against the Saints at home, especially coming off of a bye week.
We're off to a great start because we disagree. What we love to do. I'm going to take the Lions in this. They come off a very tough loss at home. Matt Stafford, even though he is a little bit banged up, I think he can match the production of Drew Brees, as Brees has kind of taken a step back this year. And the Detroit Lions defense is so much better than it's been in the last few years, and New Orleans still doesn't have a defense. So I just feel like it's going to be a shootout, and I feel like at the least the Lions can cover that 5, but I really do think they'll go down there and get another win. I know they had to come back, but they were, I don't know, a possession away of being 4-1 and setting the Panthers to 3-2. So
yeah,
I don't know.
They were in that game. They were moving the ball. If they had at least one timeout left, who knows what would have happened. But just the fact that they ran out of timeouts too early in the fourth quarter really cost them.
Yeah, and Matt Stafford, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think it's 9 touchdowns for Stafford, 1 interception, and Drew Brees has 8 and no interception. So, I mean, 2 good quarterbacks. Stafford's a little banged up, but I think they're going to pull it out on the road. Let's move into our second prediction of the week. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we just talked about, getting shellacked by the Jacksonville Jaguars, going into Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe, who's your pick?
After what we saw out of the Steelers last week, and the fact that you heard Ben Roethlisberger questioning his playing ability after losing to the Jaguars really blows my mind. But I mean, if you don't have your quarterback having confidence, he's arguing with his number 1 receiver. I feel like the head coach has kind of ruffled some feathers too this year. I liked the Steelers a lot going into this season, and they really haven't shown that they can play consistent, on either side in all phases of the game. But you just gotta love what the Chiefs are doing so far this year. They just really have it going on. I mean, Alex Smith is arguably the MVP of the season so far. They have an ascending talent in Kareem Hunt in the backfield. Tyreek Hill is doing what he does best, making huge, big splash plays. The only question mark in this game is if Travis Kelce's healthy enough to get out there for them, because he's a huge X factor for them on offense. But I mean, I'm still all on the Chiefs, especially at home.
Alex Smith is no longer afraid to push it down the field, and that's been the biggest difference in the Chiefs this year. Of course, they bring in Kareem Hunt, he's been outstanding, and just added to their offense. But I think it was child's play last week by Ben Roethlisberger saying he doesn't have it anymore. He's setting everyone up. I'm telling you, they're going to go in there and they're going to get the win, and they're going to push the Chiefs to what, 5-1? Yeah, 5-1. That offense, as bad as it looked last week, it's going to look good this week. The Chiefs are giving up a lot of points in these wins. I mean, look at Deshaun Watson, 34 points. The Eagles even scored, 22 against them, 23, something like that. And then the week before, in between that, I don't know. Kansas City's defense isn't as good without Eric Berry. Marcus Peters, they don't even throw to his side, so it depends where Antonio Brown steps up or lines up and who he lines up against. And Travis Kelce, we'll see if he goes. I'm riding all 3 underdogs, and we'll get into the Eagles in a bit. But I'm riding with the Lions on the road. I'm riding with the Steelers on the road, and I'll be riding with the Eagles on the road. So let's jump right into it and get to week 6 matchup, Thursday Night Football. The Eagles are not favored in this game. They play Thursday at 8:30. Let's start with the key injury report, and man, is it long for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll start there once my computer stops freezing. And
Yeah, did you know that the Chiefs are averaging 435 total yards on offense?
well, it's not going to happen. They're going to get 434 this week and lose.
That is insane.
All right, so looking at the Eagles injury report, there's a lot of questionable and outs. So let's start with the outs. We have Ronald Darby, who earlier in the week was listed as questionable. That's got to be good. I didn't expect him to suit up for this game, but with 10 days off after Thursday, after tomorrow, I think there's a chance that he comes back against Washington, which would be a little odd because that's when he went out. But it looks like good news there. And then Lane Johnson would be the biggest one. He's got a concussion, and he did not participate all 3 days. He will be out. But as far as questionable goes, there's Bo Allen and Fletcher Cox. Foot injury, calf injury. They're both questionable. It looks like Fletcher Cox is going to go. Corey Graham has returned from the hamstring. Jalen Watkins has returned from the hamstring, although he's questionable. Wendell Smallwood is questionable. I don't think he will play. And the list goes on. Chris Long, Rodney McLeod, they're all on the injury report, but it seems like they'll be suiting up. So nothing really to worry about. Jordan Hicks is also on here with an ankle, but they were full participants. So we switch over to the Panthers, and the Panthers, it's not that long, but there are 3 key players that will be out for this game, and it starts with Ryan Khalil, their center, up front, snapping to Cam Newton. I think that's really big because he's a veteran in this league and he knows how to call out defenses. I think that's a key thing. And then both their safeties, Kirk Coleman and Demetrius Cox, are both out with ankle and knee injuries. That's huge. We've seen Kirk Coleman, as he's left Philadelphia, kind of be a good player. So that would be the injury report. Let's jump into our discussion and breakdown. Joe, I'm going to throw it to you and kind of get your thoughts on the game first as we jump into Thursday Night Football.
Just real quick, I just wanted to touch on. I did read earlier today that Smallwood and Cox are going to be game time decisions. So hopefully that plays out in our favor. But something interesting to note, I did see that both of the corners that start for Carolina are on their injury report as recently as Tuesday. So that's something to keep an eye on. And I did see that one of their starting defensive ends is on the injury report as well, listed at questionable. So, I think if they lose, another starter on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, it's going to be great news for Eagles fans. But that's definitely something else to keep an eye on. And that Khalil injury is going to be huge for the Eagles defensive line. But getting into the game, I think when you look at the Panthers, you've seen what Cam Newton has done in the last 2 weeks, throwing over 300 yards of both games, and really kind of finding himself. He started the year off slow. He was coming off of an injury. Losing Greg Olsen, which is remarkable to see what they've done on offense after losing him. I kind of just I don't really know. I don't like the way Carolina's defense, especially their linebackers, would line up against the Eagles' offense. They have great linebackers in Kuechly and Davis. But on the other side, it's just I love, after Khalil getting bounced out for the game, I love the Eagles' defensive line in this game, especially if Fletcher Cox comes back in there. It's going to just fire up the entire defense, especially getting their best defensive player out there. It's really gonna give them confidence, I think, and that I feel like they are playing with a bit of a swagger. They're playing well in all 3 phases of the game right now, so they have that going in their favor. But for me, it's just one of those games where you're kind of just staring at it and you're like, it would be all right if if the Eagles lost in this game. But I think this week is really when we're going to find out who the Eagles are. I know last week I spoke a lot about Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar really having a breakout game. And, there are some questions I feel beginning to creep in. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey has made some big plays, but he hasn't had really a big game. He hasn't had over 100 yards. I think his best game was against the Chiefs when he had, I think, 93 yards off, I believe it was 7 catches.
Yep.
I think, when I saw the Carolina injury report today and I read that their top 2 corners are on there, I'm thinking, all right, wow, okay. And their starting safety, Kirk Coleman, is out as well. I'm like, wow, this has Alshon Jeffrey written all over it. I think this is the game where we're really going to see Alshon Jeffrey and Carson Wentz's chemistry explode, and I feel like he's just going to get out there, and I think he could have as many as 2 touchdowns, to be honest with you.
Very well said. I like a lot of what you said. I think the thing that is scaring Eagles fans is how big and physical the wide receivers are for Carolina. You got Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess, who has stepped up the last 2 games with 2 touchdowns. The size, I think it boils down to this, and you just mentioned that Cam Newton is playing at the MVP caliber that he was 2 seasons ago. He's back off the shoulder surgery. He's feeling good. He's airing it out. But I think it depends on what Cam shows up. Now, a lot of this has to do with, or a lot of the feelings that I have towards the game have to do with everyone kind of against the Eagles, I feel. And coming off the win last week, I saw a video in the locker room where Doug Peterson says, and Carson Wentz kind of reiterated it, we're not going to get too high. We're not going to get too low. Yeah, we took care of Arizona 34-7, but they're a good football team. They have some good pieces. So I just like the mentality going into it. It's a short week. There's a lot of things going against the Eagles. They don't have Lane Johnson, and they're going to put in Julius Peppers on the other side, who's going to wreak havoc against Big V at times. They don't play him a lot, but when he gets in, he's refreshed, so I think that's kind of a matchup you need to look at. But as far as the Eagles go, everything's against them. They're traveling on a short week on the road. Cam Newton's playing well. They're without Lane Johnson, and that's exactly why I think the Eagles come out and just do enough to get the win this week. I feel like there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Like, looking at the stats for this game, the Eagles are number 1 in time of possession in the league. The Panthers, they're number 2. You look at third down efficiency, the Eagles are at 53% and number 1 in the league. The Panthers, number 2 at 50%. So it's going to be a battle. I mean, defensively, I wouldn't be surprised if this is kind of a sloppy game and neither offense is able to move the ball. But just with everything kind of going against the Eagles, I feel like the way Carson Wentz is taking control of this offense, making plays, taking shots when he needs to, and playing smart football. Yeah, he did have 1 interception last week that we talked about a lot. But he's playing a lot smarter football than he did last year, where he was just kind of airing it out off his back foot and getting intercepted. I don't know. It's another week where the Eagles have to prove themselves. And if they do prove themselves, they'll be a legitimate playoff contender. But I really think the Eagles go down there. They put up a fight. I wouldn't be surprised if they did lose because Carolina is a good team. But I really think the Eagles are going to go down there and win a close game.
Yeah, I see it being a close game as well. I feel like these teams kind of mirror each other, and what they really try to do. But like you said, we got to worry about Kelvin Benjamin's size. I think you're going to need to see a big game out of Rasul Douglas, who's their biggest and best press corner.
Yep.
You could say. I believe he's 6'2", so that's going to be an intriguing matchup. I don't think that he's not really going to be a corner who's going to shadow anyone. I think they're going to use him, in spots against both guys. But, you got to see another big game out of Jalen Mills, too. I mean, you really got to give him credit. He's been playing well early on in this season. It's really great to see. You feel like the Eagles' secondary is going to get healthy at the times when most of the secondaries in the league are kind of getting injured. We haven't even talked about Sidney Jones yet, who is running and is working out and could come back, I believe around week 8 or 9. So it's great news. But really, when you look at it, like right now, the Eagles defense is second in the league in stopping the run, and they're only allowing 62.8 yards a game. That's ridiculous. And then you look over at Carolina, who's 6th in the league, only allowing 79.6 yards. So, and when you look at the Eagles, they're 5th in rushing at 138 yards a game. So, I mean, obviously the Eagles over the last few weeks, they're looking to build their passing game off their running game, and really having Carson kind of shift out to the right side and kind of work off play action. And, I think that's going to be a bit of a struggle for them in this game. We're going to have to look at the injury reports down right up until kickoff because Addison, the defensive end, he's on the injury report. And actually I saw Julius Peppers is on the injury report as well. So, that's something that you got to keep an eye on. But, both teams are on short weeks. Carolina was on the road last week. If they were at home, last week and home again this week, I would be kind of weary. But I really do think the Eagles have a shot in this game. I really think it's going to come down to time of possession and turnover battle in a game like this. And, when you're going up another good team against another good team, that's really what it comes down to. We talked a lot about this during the Chiefs game. Really whoever makes, the more turnovers and just, kind of coughs it up. That's really what it comes down to when you're playing good teams. I mean, you saw how the Eagles handled the Cardinals, and obviously we found out last week the Cardinals are not a good football team right now. So you have the Eagles going in 4-1 against another 4-1 team who's played well. You beat good teams when you manage the clock and you don't turn the ball over, and that's really what they have to do to kind of win this game.
Yeah, I think if the Eagles are able to go out and score early, like in the first quarter, they put up a touchdown, and then they keep Cam in the pocket, making him one-dimensional with the run. If they can surround Cam Newton and their cornerbacks specifically, like you just touched on, if Jalen Mills and Rasul Douglas and Patrick Robinson can make these wide receivers not burn them deep, it's just going to make the Panthers a lot more one-dimensional, and it allows the defensive line, everyone says this, but it's true. You allow the defensive line to contain Cam Newton, it's going to be tough for them to move the ball against the Eagles' defense once again. You build that lead, it gets tougher and tougher as the game goes on and time wears away. The one thing I am concerned about is Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield just because of Nigel Bradham and Michael Kendricks covering him. He really hasn't turned it on the way a lot of people have thought already this season, but I could see this kind of being a game where surprisingly, like out of nowhere, he just has 100 yards. Like you look down, he might only have, 4 or 5 catches out of the backfield, but there's 1 or 2 big gains in there where you're like, wow, this kid's got it. And, we were seeing reports in preseason and in practice out of there that Luke Kuechly couldn't touch him. Now you're going to put Bradham on him. I think that could be a real concern. But my key again, get the Eagles an early score, make the Panthers one-dimensional, and kind of control the time of possession because both teams are good at that.
Yeah, the way I feel in this game, I think that Doug's going to be more aggressive than he has been in the last 2 weeks. And I feel like that's going to make or break what the Eagles do in this game. And, if they go down because of Doug making a few aggressive play calls, I feel like that's going to be something that's really talked about a lot next week.
Mm-hmm.
You really haven't heard the Doug Peterson haters over the last 2 weeks and the way the Eagles have played. But, I think this is one of those games where, he's going to have to make a few aggressive play calls and, Carson Wentz is going to have to go out there and play. And, right now I got to say I trust him making those decisions. I know we talked about that interception last week, but, I think in a tight spot, he's shown that he's clutch. He's got that clutch gene. So I really think it's going to come down to, like I said, the turnover battle and being able to manage that clock.
And Jim Schwartz on the other side, I think he's going to dial up some exotic blitzes that the Eagles haven't used yet. I think they're going to try and confuse Cam Newton as best they can. They have done a very good job other than, 1 or 2 plays against LA and the Giants where they got burnt deep, but they've done a very good job of kind of keeping the ball in front of them on passing downs. And, you even see, I pointed out Larry Fitzgerald had 6 receptions last week, but only for 51 yards. They kept them in front. And these big body receivers, they're a little fast, but they're not the same quickness that we saw in Sterling Shepard or Tyrell Williams or so keep them in front. Let's kind of get to our final predictions. I'm fairly confident in the Eagles this week. I think they're going to go down and surprise a lot of people and kind of put them on the map. I said even before the season they were going to have to rack up the wins early just because of the way the season plays out and the schedule plays out kind of down the road. So I'm not surprised. I think they're going to go down there and win a close game, just get enough done on the foot of Jake Elliott. They're going to win 19-17 in a low-scoring game, have an interception late to complete the win.
Yeah, they're riding Jake Elliott a lot. He's been tremendous since the Eagles have brought him on. I like that. I would say that I have it a bit higher than that, but kind of the same deal. I have it a field goal game as well, and I like the Eagles in this game 24-21. I think that they're gonna have to get in a nice position to really, like I said, their special teams has played well, and when you look at it, I feel like they're, where they've started their drives on the field has really helped them, and I think it's really gonna come down to, like you said, Jake Elliott's leg, and I think we're gonna see quite a few field goals.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up episode 56. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoy Thursday Night Football tomorrow against the Carolina Panthers. 2 4-1 teams going up against it to claim one of the top seeds in the NFC kind of early in the season, and it'll determine their fate as the season goes on. So that's going to wrap up this week. We will see you next week. Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you. You can shut it down. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right, guys. As always, great week. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Definitely check us out on mysportingedge.com for all your latest news articles and updates. Check us out on Periscope. Head over to the apparel store. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have some apparel up on there that you can check out, and we'll donate the proceeds towards breast cancer research. Also, we'll see you next week. Take care.